Good evening and a warm welcome. I'm Grihato Siddiqui and you're watching Viewpoint. After 3 decades of stalling and discord, the Women's Reservation Bill is on the verge of becoming a law as it was introduced in the Lok Sabha today. The day that marked the start of proceedings in the new parliament had the historic step taken at enabling greater participation of women in policy making at the state and national levels. Now remember, in independent India, it is the issue that got momentum only in the 1970s after the United Nations sought a report on the status of women ahead of International Women's Year 1975. Later, the Rajiv Gandhi government constituted a committee that recommended reservation of seats for women in elected bodies, and these recommendations in fact paved the way for the Constitution's 73rd and 74th Amendment Acts enacted under P.V. Narasimha Rao, mandating the reservation of 1/3 of seats for women in legislation. Essentially, this quick lesson in history is also to underline that the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam, introduced today by the Union Law Minister, is similar to the Women's Reservation Bill drafted in 2010 when the Manmohan Singh-led Congress government was in power. And only 2 amendments to bring in quota for the Anglo-Indian community have been dropped in the new version. More importantly, a 33% of quota for women in parliament and state legislatures as promised by the proposed law may come into effect only by 2029. That's a crucial point. This, as the quota can be implemented only after the first delimitation or the redrawing of constituencies after the bill becomes law. And constituencies, remember, will only be redrawn after the next census, which is likely to happen in 2027. Now, this is to help you understand what this credit war between the opposition and the BJP that's brewing is all about. It is true that the old bill lapsed because it was pending implementation, in fact presentation in the Lok Sabha altogether after having been passed in the Rajya Sabha in 2010. But the crucial contention because of which the UPA couldn't reach a census within its alliance partner was the quota issue and the percentage to be earmarked for women back then. Now, the quota issue and the timely implementation somehow remains. So we are asking today, will this put the India bloc in a jeopardy on some refraining from giving a nod to the bill? In that case, how will they explain their stance to their voters? Or is it really a jumla thrown in ahead of 2024 general elections by the BJP, considering the implementation looks far away?
नारी शक्ति वंदन अधिनियम 2023 को सदन में पूर्व स्थापित करने की अनुमति दी जाए।
हमारी सरकार ने इस दिशा में कदम बढ़ाया है। कल ही कैबिनेट में महिला आरक्षण वाला जो विधेयक है उसको मंजूरी दी गई है।
Finally is coming. Women's Reservation Bill.
वुमेन रिजर्वेशन बिल, इसकी शुरुआत यूपीए सरकार ने और खास मैडम सोनिया गांधी जी ने की।
ये बिल साफ तौर से कहता है कि महिला आरक्षण तभी होगा जब पहले जनगणना होगी, फिर डिलिमिटेशन होगा और उसके बाद महिला आरक्षण क्रियान्वित होगा।
इलेक्शन आ चुके हैं, 9.5 साल कुछ नहीं किए अच्छे दिन वाले गवर्नमेंट, तो कुछ तो करना है, कुछ एजेंडा चाहिए।
हमने स्पष्ट तौर पर कहा कि सैद्धांतिक तौर पे हम संसद में भी, विधानसभाओं में भी महिलाओं को आरक्षण मिले, उसका हम समर्थन करते हैं।
पिछड़ा, दलित, इसके लिए क्या प्रावधान आप कर रहे हैं? रिजर्वेशन के अंदर रिजर्वेशन, तो पता चला कि हाई प्रोफाइल की महिलाएं आ गई, तो भाई तो फिर गांव का क्या होगा?
Now, let me first break down on what does this women's quota bill really entail. What are the key points that are to be considered and that are to be looked at? The first key point, of course, is that this bill offers 33% seats that are reserved for women in the field of politics. Now, what does this mean? It means that 1/3 seats are reserved for women and also for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe women. That is, from the said quota, 1/3 shall be reserved for the women from the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes. The third point is that this reservation is in the state assemblies and also in the Lok Sabha. Remember, this bill seeks to reserve that 33% seats for women in Lok Sabha, state legislative assemblies and also the Delhi Assembly. This quota won't, however, apply to Rajya Sabha or the state legislative councils. Now, the bill will be implemented post the delimitation and the census. That is a key observation. The reservation of seats shall only come into effect after the delimitation exercise is undertaken, after the relevant figures for the first census have really been published. Now, what happens is that there is also going to be a rotation of seats after the delimitation. Now, that is also a crucial aspect. This rotation of seats reserved for women in Lok Sabha and state assemblies shall take place after each subsequent exercise of delimitation. That also is a crucial aspect which makes it really important to look at the contents of this women's quota bill. Now, before I open this panel up for my guests this evening, let me actually bring in a very special guest who's joining me, Ms. Shashi Panja, who is the cabinet minister in the state of West Bengal. And we are in fact really happy that she could find time to join us. Remember, TMC is the only political party that can boast of 40% of women representatives out of the 23 seats that it has in the Lok Sabha. So that's an important aspect. Ms. Panja, first of all, what are your views about the introduction of this bill in the Lok Sabha, the first day that the new parliament has started functioning? What do you actually read into this particular move?
Well, first of all, it was long overdue. Secondly, this was an issue very dear to All India Trinamool Congress and its chairperson, Mamata Banerjee. And many a times, whenever we got scope, our MPs got scope in Parliament, they would have been flagging this issue. They used to, that we need discussion on this. We need to take this discussion and this bill in Lok Sabha. There have been many a times that our MPs have flagged this issue. You know, it's very interesting as you were reiterating and also in a way recapitulating our history of this bill, the way it has come out. There was way back, you know, the first attempt which was made by the United Front government, and interestingly at that time when there was the bill was referred to a joint committee,
yes,
which was headed by then CPI's Geeta Mukherjee, and that included 31 members, of which Mamata Banerjee was one of the members. So it is that way back that Mamata Banerjee has been vociferous on this issue, and she has also in a way been a torchbearer. Now, having seen that it has gone through its twists and turns, and as you said, 2010 was the first time it could see that Rajya Sabha cleared the bill, but then it got stuck in Lok Sabha. But you know, any kind of political party, if it shows its political will, its intent, and that is what All India Trinamool Congress showed, and that was through your own, I mean, charity begins at home, through your own, show your own intent and exemplify. And that is what Didi has done. So whenever it was any elections, be it the Lok Sabha elections, be it the state legislature elections, the Vidhan Sabha elections, or even for that matter, the Panchayat three-tier elections, there was always, in fact, in Panchayat, we already have 50% reservation in our state, and since then, every 5 years that the election takes place, we've even gone through the third one. So by now, we had a 50% reservation for women, and we have a huge number of women representatives who've been elected and also holding very positions of pride in the Panchayat. But besides that, also as a political party, she has ensured that she gave candidature to women in the Vidhan Sabha in 2011, 2016, 2021, and also similarly in 2014 and 2019 in the Lok Sabha elections. So that is why, that is the figure that we could boast of, that in Parliament too, I think we have more than 35% women in Parliament, and in comparison to the ruling government, which has so many seats, has won so many seats in 2019, they have only about, say, 13%. Similarly, we have in Lok Sabha about 9 of our ladies out of 23 seats that we won, and in Rajya Sabha we also have a woman MP. So what I'm trying to say is there are two things. Till the law came through, the political party showed that no, I am offering candidature to women candidates. That is also it reflects good about your party's thought. So it is more than enough to prove that All India Trinamool Congress was, in fact, women's issues or women representation, even in Lok Sabha and state legislation, was very close to our heart.
Absolutely. And Ms. Panja, you're rightly mentioning that TMC has walked the talk pretty much in talking about, not just talking about gender parity, but also implementing it within the party. And we see that through the numbers and also through the representation that the party has. But does that mean this is going to be an unblinking support of the TMC to this bill that has now been introduced, considering right now there is a crying foul, there is a credit war that is ensuing, even as the bill was introduced by the law minister?
You know, I think it's not a question of any war. If you're speaking for the women of the country and if you want them to be represented, then I think the credit will go to the women. I mean, look at the number of women voters we have in various states of India. Look at the outpouring of women voters when they come to vote. So it's all about gender equality and gender justice. I think the credit goes to the women who have fought for this. And it is, as I said, long overdue. And we hope, let's get into the nitty-gritties of the bill. Even my party is getting into it. We are also trying to take updates from our MPs who are right there in the hot seat in Parliament. And let's see how it unfolds tomorrow.
So you're absolutely correct. It has been in the legislative limbo for too long, more than 27 years. But what we saw happen and what we have seen as far as reactions coming in, especially from your alliance partners, as far as the India bloc is concerned, we've heard members of the Congress party, they are severely opposed to the bill because it's been introduced and it has been packaged in a new way. At least that's what has been projected by the introduction of that bill by the Bharatiya Janata Party. That is a new format. However, it is very similar to what was introduced in the Rajya Sabha in 2010 under the Manmohan Singh regime. Now, the Congress is crying foul over it. I want to understand, this is a pointed question that I want you to take, is whether this is going to be creating any kind of rift between the Congress and TMC or the India bloc for that matter, considering the Congress, we do not know whether they would go ahead and support the passage of the bill tomorrow.
I think that is the discussion which all parties will be having, which belong to the India Alliance. That is the discussion which should be underway. But you know what is also, it's not just this. I mean, even the, as you mentioned very correctly, and we also read through it, that the delimitation, we are now waiting for delimitation to occur. We are then waiting for a census to happen. And when it takes shape, now, even vis-a-vis delimitation, there is a incongruity, you can say, because there are states which also have complained that if we have controlled our population better, that doesn't mean we lose out some seats for delimitation. So it is, that gets a bit complex again. I mean, it is not smooth. Having said that, BJP had it even in their manifesto in 2014 and 2019. I hope they didn't have a vested interest behind this to you know, kind of drive a wedge through the India Alliance or something like that? Or is it really that this cause was very endearing to them? Were they really feeling from their heart that yes, women's issues and their women's representation
would it really drive a wedge is what my question is, and I'm going back to that question again, Ms. Panja. No, I really want to understand that. Would it really drive a wedge? Because you are clearly saying that this is not going to be implemented before the delimitation exercise and the census that only happens in 2027. So we are essentially looking at 2029 for the implementation. Nothing happens in this 2024 general elections. So the Jumla jibe that the Congress is putting for the BJP, does the TMC agree to that?
No, actually, that is what we have seen. Historically, BJP has never, you know, fulfilled its promises. So that's why the word Jumla. But having given such a large window, I mean, long window, which allows complexities to set in.
Yes.
And be the process or be the thought, you see, they're not in a hurry for this. And really, to introduce at this time when it's almost like we are due for elections. 2014 to 2023 was also a huge, I mean, you had a long period of time. If you, it could have been introduced, it could have been discussed or whatever with its, you know, those clauses that they have put in. So, I think, and to call a special session in Parliament, which is a very small session, and the suspense with which it was, whether it will be introduced or not introduced, not knowing the agenda. This Parliament special session opened up almost on a blank page, not knowing it is. So the unpreparedness, or to, as I said, as if to flummox the India alliance, or to the opposition to the BJP, to keep them unprepared. All these attempts speaks of something else. It doesn't speak that you are really, again, we are being used. Again, our rights are being used. Or our representation, the issue is being used.
So will you call this a bluff by the BJP?
Differences, which should not be.
Will you call this a bluff, ma'am?
Well, let's say, certainly they have to make their intentions very clear. They have to make it very clear.
But they will say they have introduced the bill.
Transparent.
It's a historic bill.
It should not be so grey. No, we have been asking for this introduction even before.
Yes.
You see, there are lots of adjectives and lots of, it's historic and everything. It will be historic once you push it through. You have that, even they have the numbers. They also have the numbers. We've seen bills in the past, undiscussed, not discussed, voice vote and through. Because they had the numbers thumping on the desk over. So if you are really very, and you have our support also. So it should be through. Then where's the doubt? Then why this long window? Why these, this should be delimitation? Unprepared again, as usual.
In the India bloc discussion,
we're not fighting.
Yes. So I really want to understand this from you, ma'am. In the India bloc discussion, which you are saying is going to happen ahead of the session tomorrow, if it is so decided that because right now as well, the implementation is pretty much in a limbo, it goes back, it gets pushed to 2029, we are not going to be supporting the bill. Will the TMC be one with that idea?
I think it is difficult for me now to say it, because I'm not in Delhi, I'm not one of the MPs. Our chairperson, our National General Secretary is there. I think they are in discussion. I think it's only later on that we can really give you any further details on this. What we are saying is, repeatedly, the intent should be clear, and our intent is clear. And then what's keeping us away from it?
Okay. All right. Ms. Panja, I'd like to thank you for joining us and sharing in your views. Thank you so much for giving us your time and telling us about what the TMC really feels about this bill that has today been introduced in the Parliament. Let me now open this up to my guests who are joining us on the broadcast on Viewpoint this evening. Shaina NC of the BJP, Bhavya Narasimhamurthy of the Congress Party, also Karuna Nandi, who is a senior advocate, is with us, and also with us is the only male member on the panel today, that is Mr. Javed Ansari, is a senior journalist. Shaina, beginning with you, Jumla jibe against pitted at the BJP, how do you respond?
I would say at least today be magnanimous. Our Honorable Prime Minister has shown guts of steel. He has walked the talk and not just paid a tribute to the women of the Bharatiya Janata Party, but the women of India. The fact that women's reservation has been a struggle for 27 years, government after government, from 1996, 1998, going back and forth, numbers, conviction, questions, people doing all kinds of drama of tearing of the bill in the Parliament. All these things cannot be just overlooked. Please look back. Today, our Honorable Prime Minister has taken a mammoth leap of faith when it comes to the women of India, when it comes to his conviction of equality. You saw in the past bold decisions, be it triple talaq, which gave women equality, or for that matter, equality, empowerment, security, all the yojanas, be it Ujjwala, Jan Dhan, Mudra banking, the list is endless. Having said that, women's reservation was required because we were tired of being tokens. We didn't want to just have a token seat here and there. The fact that you have only 15% representation in the Lok Sabha, and it being the highest ever, with 82 members of parliament, or for that matter in Rajya Sabha having 31 and being 13%, is yet much lower than even our neighboring countries like Nepal or Sri Lanka, or for that matter even Bangladesh. So I would say that we as a country have under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi, have done a humane service by giving women the opportunity to excel. And only when there is an opportunity can we showcase our talent. All the nitty-gritties, of course, will be deliberated in the days to come. We know that there is a lot of fine-tuning. We need representation of our scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, etc. But the fact that 50% of the electorate can bring up issues which belong to you and me, be it maternity issues, be it menstrual hygiene in schools for children in rural India, so many core issues which women are more empathetic towards. And I'm glad that as a male leader, he has shown that he leads as a statesman. And this is not just a boost for Nari Shakti, this is a boost for humanity.
So I'd like to come to you now, Bhavya. The fact that this is the Modi government, it has gone on to allow women to excel, borrowing the lines that Shaina just mentioned, after being in the legislative limbo for 27 years. Why the credit war there?
So, last night or even in the morning, we were really happy. Me personally as a woman and as a Congress party spokesperson, we welcomed it with open arms.
Yes.
We said, yes. This is a revolutionary step and we needed this. But later on the bill was introduced and we saw the ifs and buts. I just want to ask Ms. Shaina, what is the whole point of waiting for delimitation of the census? Because the population percentage in India for women won't change as such. Why not implement it this year so that, next parliamentary elections we have this? Point number one. Point number two. 2014, you have this in your manifesto. It's been 9 years and there were more than 50 plus state assembly elections. By now, even one parliamentary election has happened after 2014. So there would have been 182 parliamentary members, female parliamentary members by now, and every state 33%. So what stopped you for 9 years? And now also you want to introduce this and bring this if or but and say that, only after delimitation, only after census we can do this, and we don't know how long it's going to take.
Okay.
Like if they can at least reason out why. Delimitation happens because of the population increase. Yes. That depends on the communities, giving them reservation. But women belong to one community. We almost make 50% of the population and we are only giving 33% reservation. So what's the whole point in waiting for the census and the delimitation here? Why this? And why now? Just before elections, you're doing this just as a eyewash. It's so clear. But like I said, last night and in the morning, we were very happy that this is happening. Although they didn't even discuss it with the other party members, which actually happen in a democracy, still we were happy that this bill is a revolutionary step. And we tried to introduce this in 2010, passed it in Rajya Sabha, but were unable to pass this in Lok Sabha. And BJP was in full majority since 2014. They could have easily introduced this along with this. In 2018 itself, Ms. Sonia Gandhi and Mr. Rahul Gandhi had written a letter to Mr. Narendra Modi saying, we will give unconditional support. If you bring this before 2019 elections, if you pass this bill, we will give them unconditional support. Even today, we are ready to give unconditional support. But my question is, what's the whole point? Why not next year? Why can't it be implemented?
So will you still be giving unconditional support is what my question to you. As I really want some kind of clarity here. Is it going to happen tomorrow? I understand that it's still in the limbo. It is pushed to 2029. But what you're saying right now, as a member of the Congress party, will that unconditional support be given to this historic bill or not?
That will happen once our top leaders meet and discuss about this. Now we are part of another alliance. So we need to have a deliberate discussion before coming to that conclusion.
Okay.
But basically, the whole party and its alliance members, the partners, were very happy until morning before the bill was introduced with its conditions.
Okay. I'll quickly go to Karuna and Mr. Javed Ansari in just a bit. We have a quick piece of breaking news that we have to put before our viewers because there is a statement that's now coming in from the Union Home Minister, Mr. Amit Shah, who has put out a tweet. And I'm quoting from that tweet. Across the length and breadth of India, people are rejoicing the introduction of the Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam in Parliament, which is the Women's Reservation Bill. It shows the unwavering commitment of the Modi government to empower women, he says. Sadly, he also goes on to say that sadly the opposition is unable to digest this, and what is more shameful is that except tokenism, the Congress has never been serious about women's reservation. Either they let legislations lapse or their friendly parties prevented the bill from being tabled. Their double standards will never be hidden, whatever stunts they try to take credit for. Let me go back to guests with me on Viewpoint. Mr. Ansari, I would like your views on this statement that has just come in by the Union Home Minister. I was wanting to understand from you, has this pushing of the implementation of the bill after census, after delimitation to 2029, left a sour taste within the political parties who were willing to support it unopposed? But now this statement by the Union Home Minister, this is getting combative.
Well, I'm not surprised. Political parties will always try and squabble and quarrel to try and take credit. Yes, they do, just as we journalists always claim that, we were the first to break the news. So stuff, I'm not surprised. I've seen it happen in the past. It will continue to happen in the future. Okay. It's a significant step, but an incomplete step. I wish they had thought this through. And if the intent was clear, this bill ought to have been brought much earlier in their term. Now, given that we are just 6 or 8 months away from the general elections, it lends credence to those who allege that this has been done with an eye on the polls. Because there is not enough time. You promised the moon and what you've delivered. The difference, there's been a huge difference between what they promised and what they delivered. 2029 is a bridge too far. Who knows what will happen between 2029? How many of us will be around? We don't know. So, and there are many things that could or could not go wrong. They should have thought this through, this business of census, this delimitation. If instead of that dramatic announcement of demonetization earlier in his regime, if the Prime Minister had announced women's reservation, by now it would have seen light of day. And the likes of Shaina Hansi and Krishnamurti and Karunaji, if she's so interested, could have all been in Parliament. But it's not likely to happen anytime soon. And as far as I have no doubt in my mind that this bill will be passed in Parliament. The Congress, the TMC, the left will support it. There will be murmurs of dissent because now the ecosystem, the environment has changed. So the fight for taking political credit notwithstanding, most political parties will lend their shoulder to the wheel. But to what avail? Because women will now have to wait for at least another 6 years before they can even hope to step into Parliament.
Karuna, what are your views about that? Considering this was supposed to be a historic step, towards gender parity, and also the fact that it would give a level playing field to women so that they can come in more numbers into policy making. But now this is much delayed. Technically, how does one look at it?
Thank you for having me. Since we're talking about gender parity, if we're going to refer to the gentleman as Mr. Ansari, we should definitely refer to the other panelists as Ms. Narasimha Murthy and Ms. Shaina Hansi and Ms. Nandi.
Sure.
So just going forward on other panels also,
sure.
Many people make this mistake. Look, I think the delimitation point is not just a delay issue, right? It's also the fact that delimitation would mean that a state like Uttar Pradesh would have a huge number of seats, and a state like Kerala or a state like Tamil Nadu would have fewer seats, where the BJP is getting fewer seats, in any case, proportionately, right? So the delimitation exercise is going to be a very controversial one. And to link, therefore, women's reservation to the delimitation exercise is quite a clever move in that regard. Also, the fact is that it is very similar, this bill, to the 2010 bill. And it suffers from a similar lacuna, which is that you have correctly reservations for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe women. Otherwise, you just have, Mr. Ansari was pointing to all of us, you just have a whole bunch of
upper caste women, the same in parliament, which we don't want. However, OBC women we don't have reservations for, right? And that is another look. And this is the reason why I'm not saying Sharad Yadav's politics is so great. Otherwise, I mean, he was saying in parliament around the same time कि बालकटी औरतें he was talking about, and then he was saying नहीं लड़कियों का हम भी पीछा करते थे, which resulted in the stalking bill being diluted and it becoming bailable at the first instance, which is a huge problem. However, I think they are right about the fact that OBC women also must get reservations. Now, in terms of credit, look, I am delighted that we have political parties fighting over credit with regard to women's reservation. I think it's great, you know, rather than them being unified and brushing it all under the carpet and not doing anything. And credit is due to the Deve Gowda government in 1996. Credit is due to the UPA government, but also to the women like Brinda Karat and Sushma Swaraj and Najma Heptullah, who came together as one to say that this bill must be passed. And they're the ones who, across party lines, took this bill through the Rajya Sabha, right? And credit also belongs to this government now for actually using their majority and their might to table it in parliament. However, do I think that it should be passed unopposed? No, I do not. There is absolutely no reason that Article 334 should be there, linking it to the delimitation exercise, which is a very BJP, pro-BJP electoral number increasing move. And that should be delinked. And I think the opposition parties would be well within their rights to oppose that aspect. I'm not saying prevent it from being passed because something better than nothing, but to oppose that aspect, absolutely. There's no reason it should be linked to delimitation whatsoever.
And point well taken, Ms. Nandi. While you're making that point, I also want to understand about this 15 years cap that we are looking at. Yes. How does one look at that? Because that also is a crucial aspect that needs discussing. So when you say that there are certain things that the Bharatiya Janata Party has done, you know, taking in the political capital also, and that is also at play pretty much, and it's very, very evident, the 15-year cap, that also becomes crucial.
Look, 15 years is a long time in a democracy, and hopefully we will still be a democracy. And in the next elections, then this is going to have no impact. We have seen a kind of legislative, and there's also discussion on the table on amending the constitution in a variety of ways, right? So we've seen a kind of deepening of the BJP's stronghold over the country. So look, either 15 years is a long time, either in 15 years, the BJP just has full sway and it doesn't matter anymore. So whether there are women's seats or not, or it's somebody else's problem and it's somebody else's government. So yes, I think as one, delimitation is a very important point, but as a second issue, yes, the delay is a real problem.
Okay, and addressing the delay must be the member of the Bharatiya Janata Party. China, I want you to really address that issue because Bhavya has raised that point, Ms. Nandi has raised that point. How do you respond to this? Because right now, nothing comes into effect till 2024. And again, that entire making it a hogwash or just making it only a pomp and show by the Prime Minister, by the BJP, really comes back into the discourse. How do you really combat that?
You know, when our Honorable Prime Minister said Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, a lot of people questioned it then. But today the time has come for these Betis to reach Sansad. And I think September 19th will be a historic day etched in the history of India because really people can sit with jaundiced eyes and speculate on nuances and lacunas in the system or lacunas vis-a-vis the bill. But to really empower the women of India, you need to empower democracy. You need to empower them to make legislation. You need to empower them to be a part of parliament and the assemblies. And that can only happen with the political will that the Honorable Prime Minister has shown. Now, there are so many welfare schemes, so many legal provisions, so many quotas which exist. But in the new parliament, what we are talking about is with delimitation, women, which are 50% of the electorate, should have that say. If it takes a process of time, I think so be it. Let it be in keeping with our constitution. Let it be in keeping with all the parameters that need to be reviewed, whether it's delimitation or, for that matter, for women who are waiting in the wings. We have waited 27 years, a few years, to make sure that everything is so
No,
well
I understand that
processed.
point, and
I don't
you
think
have said
in
that also, and that's a
one year at
crucial
all.
point that obviously we have to look at when it is about women's reservation bills, Shaina. But I really want to understand this. There was a lack of consensus when in 2010 this was passed in the Rajya Sabha. It was not even tabled in the Lok Sabha, and it could not see light of the day. There were opposition parties clearly not supportive of the bill, and the reason was quota. The reason was the SC/SC quota. All of those aspects removed, the lacuna still remain. There's no OBC quota that has been presented right now. I already mentioned in my introductory address on what exactly is the minor tweaking that the BJP really is talking about. How do you expect this bill, and that too with far-reaching implementation only in 2029, to be passed in the Lok Sabha without that kind of din that we are seeing in the sessions? And or for that matter, do you expect that, okay, because you have the numbers like what Bhavya was mentioning, it will be passed without any issues?
Firstly, our Prime Minister is a statesman. He has the political will and the conviction to deliver. So I don't think there is any area of contention there. Second, we have the numbers. For the first time, we have the numbers in the Rajya Sabha, we have the numbers in the Lok Sabha. Third, unlike the previous bills that lapsed because you didn't have the number in one of the houses, or there were people who were pretending that, Baba Saheb Ambedkar came into their dreams and tore the bill in parliament. There's been so many theatrics. Let's not get into the past.
Okay.
I only want to say that when you have a statesman who has the political will and the conviction to stand up for the ladies and the women of this country, it will be realized in reality. Having said that, for those who are trying to take either credit or trying to play a card to say that, oh, this is a jumla, I will only say wait and watch. Article 370 was abrogated. Triple talaq was implemented. There are many other schemes, many other bills, many other vision plans which have actually percolated into bold decisions that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has taken. And I think women's reservation, September 17th will be,
I still come back to that point, Shaina, because I really want to
understand.
understand people who are saying that this is a jumla is not the point. Had the intent really been in place, and that's the accusation against the BJP, it should have been an immediate implementation, or the census could have been done in 2021. Of course, there's the COVID excuse that has been given, but these things have come into play, and that technicality also has been presented in the form of this bill that's now introduced again in the parliament after 27 years, which obviously is going to be pushing that implementation. I'd let you answer that question in just a bit, because I have another piece of breaking news, and that's why I have to just break into that for just a minute. We are now given to understand that the Andhra Pradesh Chief Minister, Mr. Y.S. Jagan Mohan Reddy, has now said that he's really proud to extend YSR CP support to the Women's Reservation Bill. Empowering our women is of utmost importance to us, he says, and he also has said that we've achieved this in Andhra Pradesh not only through the schemes and initiatives introduced in the past 4 years, but also by ensuring equitable representation. And together, let's create a brighter and more equitable future. Shaina, I'd let you have that, considering more support coming in for the bill that's been introduced by the Law Minister. But just answer my question. Why push it? That logic is always going to, that it's always going to remain.
I just have one answer, which is that the delimitation process also has to be implemented. We are looking at all aspects of the scheduled castes, the scheduled tribes, the other backward classes, etc., to make sure that this is all inclusive. And having said that, I have no doubt that the Prime Minister's political will and his conviction and his way of taking bold decisions is something we have seen in the past, and this has obviously created history for the women of India. So let's cherish this moment and deliberate on the nuances once it is discussed in Parliament.
Okay, Mr. Ansari, we've just put forth in front of our viewers there is like an unending support that's coming in. YSRCP is openly supporting the bill. TMC also has mentioned that they will support. However, on the crucial question on whether if there are fissures within the India bloc, they will deliberate. They have not come up with a clear answer on whether they'd go against, let's say, a Congress party to support the bill. What do you see happening? I was asking the China about the caste arithmetic here, how this stopped the passage of the bill back then in 2010. What is it going to happen when it comes to the alliance partners? Because right now also that entire issue remains this time as well.
So some political parties of the alliance may agree to disagree, but this will not be a breaking point as far as the alliance is concerned. I'm not surprised that Jagan Mohan Reddy's party has extended support. They have almost, they always lean on the side of the government, as does the BJD, as does the BRS. The Congress party cannot afford to go back on this bill. They are the ones who introduced this. Mrs. Gandhi this morning while entering Parliament says, "Ye apni bill hai, hamari bill," means this is the Congress bill. So the Congress cannot go back from its stated position. Of course, they will voice concerns. And as Ms. Nandi was saying, rightly so, why shouldn't political parties? Why shouldn't they talk in favor of representation for OBC women, for women from scheduled castes and scheduled tribes? Why should they not talk of this? They will raise those concerns, and at the end of the day, they will lend their shoulder behind this bill. They will ensure that it passes. Maybe some parties may not support it or may choose to walk out, like the SP, the RJD, and the JDU. But I do not believe that this will cause any kind of a breakup of the alliance. AAP will support it. The Shiv Sena will support it. So as far as support goes, this will. And there's a backstory, if you have enough time, on why this bill didn't pass, wasn't introduced in the Lok Sabha in 2010, because the Congress alone did not have a majority. The SP, the JDU, and the RJD were vehemently opposed to it. They marshaled out some members in the Rajya Sabha and then ensured its passage. They were willing to do the same, but for that, they needed the support of the BJP, and the BJP made it clear that they would not support any marshalling out of numbers. So while even the BJP from its male members, as also the Congress and all political parties, they were under pressure, and this was a convenient way of not having it, not allowing this bill to pass.
Bhavya, I'd let you have that question as well. I'd like to understand that. Earlier, obviously, there was not a full majority. You did not have many of the opposition parties supporting you back then in 2010. But when it comes to the Congress party, now it is the India bloc that we are looking at. Crucial parties like the JDU, SP still remain. What if they have a problem? And especially on that quota issue, on the caste issue, how is the Congress party planning on responding to that? And if at all the Congress party gets or probably is in two minds whether to support the bill or not, how are you even going to sort of explain that, considering you consider this bill yours?
We introduced the bill, we passed the bill in Rajya Sabha, but this is not the exact bill that they have brought in here. When they could, I just heard what Ms. China spoke about, 370, abrogation of 370 or triple talaq, everything they could implement on spot and with no time delay. But why this? It's just that they don't want to implement this. They just want to show the country that, they are for women rights and all of this, with no will to implement this bill. I honestly believe this is the reason. And why would we want
Bhavya, you are essentially saying that this is not the exact bill that was passed in the Rajya Sabha under the UPA regime, but there was a credit war that was ensuing right at the time when the Union Law Minister was trying to introduce the bill in the Lok Sabha over this very point. So is the Congress really in two minds on whether it's the same bill, whether it's the same continuing bill or not?
Like I said,
till morning, we were very clear that we are going to support this unconditionally.
Okay.
Now, after knowing the nitty-gritties of this bill, only our leaders, they'll meet first, they'll decide on how we are going to go about this bill, because this is not entirely according to what our bill was.
Okay, Ms. Nandi, Ms. Nandi, I'd let you have the last word. I really want to understand this one aspect. When the bill was introduced, asking the same question to you, there was a huge amount of furor from the opposition, and the most amount of noise came in from the Congress party, saying that this is the exact same bill that we'd introduced in 2010. And that's when the credit war really started. Technically, the bill lapsed when the Lok Sabha changed. Why did the Congress, do you think, is crying foul? Is that...
No. The bill did not... This bill was introduced and passed in Rajya Sabha.
Yes.
Bills introduced, the Rajya Sabha never... The term never ends.
It was not presented in Lok Sabha, yes.
No. Because it was presented in the Rajya Sabha and passed, Rajya Sabha's term never ends. It keeps every quarter, every year and a half, members keep running. It's the Lok Sabha's term which ends, which is... Rajya Sabha is not term bound. So therefore, this bill hasn't been lapsed.
So it's not lapsed. Karuna, your views?
I think that's a technicality. It doesn't matter, because if you look at the content of the bill and the content of the 2010 bill, it's practically identical except for the Article 334, which is the most damaging government here, which in fact delimitation, I just saw, is trending on Twitter. Because you make a law for 15 years later for someone else and someone else's fight, then, I mean, you're not going to get the same, it's not quite the same thing as bringing women's reservation now. But of course, the BJP is extremely good at putting out a message. So I see the photos that are running on a loop with milk being placed on Mr. Modi's head, like it's a Rajabhishekam, or it's like, it's like a worship of a god. That is happening, but it's for something that's 15 years later, and 15 years is a long time in politics.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ms. Nandi, Mr. Ansari, Shaina NC, and also Bhavya for joining us on the broadcast. That's it for this debate. But this entire conversation still remains on whether this is really a pomp and show, as the visuals really suggest, what Karuna was also talking about for the Bharatiya Janata Party yet again, by making it historic, by implementing the special session, by having the special session and getting in people to talk about the historic Women's Reservation Bill. Or in that case, is the credit war that the Congress really is talking about really justified? Because it was, after all, the Rajiv Gandhi and the Narasimha Rao government that had introduced any conversation about women's reservation in politics. We'd have to see what happens in the Parliament tomorrow. It is a crucial day as the discussion on the crucial women's reservation bills begin tomorrow. Now, top celebrities were also present as the bill was tabled in the Parliament. Here's what they had to say as they hailed the Narendra Modi-led administration.
To say about this bill is historic bill that the government has brought in, you were witness to. एक सेकंड
देखिए, ये एक हिस्टोरिक डे रहा है हम सब के लिए, और आई थिंक ये पहला जो न्यू पार्लियामेंट है उस सदन का ये पहला दिन है, और ये पूरा महिलाओं पे डेडिकेट किया गया। आज ये इतना लैंडमार्क डे है, और सब आई थिंक महिला सशक्तिकरण पे जो है वो बीजेपी सरकार ने, प्राइम मिनिस्टर नरेंद्र मोदी जी की सरकार ने जो सिर्फ महिला सशक्तिकरण पे ये इतनी देर बात कर रहे थे, तो ये हम लोगों के लिए बहुत ही एक लैंडमार्क डे है। एंड आई थिंक पहले भी ये सरकार ने महिलाओं के सशक्तिकरण के लिए बहुत कुछ किया है, जैसे कॉम्बैट आर्मी में, एयरफोर्स में, कॉम्बैट रोल्स में, वुमेन के रोल्स को लेके, पर आई थिंक दिस हैज बीन historic. And do you think there should be more women participation in politics? In particular, you've done a lot of political films also. Yes. I think in a career like politics, how do you get into it? By starting in your road shows or things like that. How difficult it is for our young women. As 15, 16-year-old boys start with road shows and rallies and being party workers. बट विमेन गेट अभी आप देखिए यूपी में क्या हुआ, एक दुपट्टा किसी का खींच दिया, सो इट गेट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट फॉर विमेन टू अडेप्ट टू करियर्स लाइक दिस। तो हमें आरक्षण की बहुत जरूरत है और आई थिंक इस तरह से और भी महिलाएं जो है आगे आ पाएंगी और देश की तरक्की में जो है सहयोग देंगी।
I would just like to say, I think it's a beautiful thing that Mr. Modi ji, our Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji has done. It's a very progressive thought. Earlier बहुत लोगों ने कोशिश की, बहुत संसाधनों ने, बट वो हो नहीं पाया और ये हमारी गवर्नमेंट ने प्रूव कर दिया। स्टार्टिंग से ही बहुत सारे हमारे स्कीम्स हैं, बेटी बचाओ बेटी पढ़ाओ, उनमें से एक है जो औरतों के लिए, मगर इससे रिजर्वेशन बिल से ये हो गया कि अब हम इक्वल पावर पे हो पाएंगे। और क्या होता है, काफ़ी बार लोगों को कोई तकलीफ होती है, वो महिला एक महिला की समझ सकती है। और हमेशा बोलते हैं ना, आप कुछ भी नया शुरू करते हैं तो घर की लक्ष्मी को बोलते हैं ना, वो घर हमेशा खुश रहता है जहाँ घर की लक्ष्मी खुश हो। तो मोदी जी ने वही किया है कि लक्ष्मी से शुरू किया है ये सांसद, तो बहुत आगे जाएगा हमारा भारत।
With that, we are slipping into a very short break, but up next, highlights of day one of the new parliament.
Was having in India, so that was also very damn quick visit of Justin Trudeau. After that, he had come for the G20 summit level talks in Delhi. In the talks also, of course, the issue of Khalistan had taken center. It is now in the India-Canada bilateral ties in the last 2 years at least, where India has continuously raised the security aspect of Indian diplomats and foreign officers in Canada as well. So in that context, Prime Minister had raised the issue of Khalistani movement and the separatist element being allowed of space in Canadian soil, to which Canadian Prime Minister had said that he is letting these things apparently stay in Canada in the name of freedom of expression and democratic right of protest, but these rights should not be part of vandalism or gundalism that these Khalistani people have been trying to do in Canada. They have been spreading an anti-India agenda. They have been asking for annexation of a part of India. These are all things that concerns India, that is highly irresponsible on part of Canadian government if it is allowing them, because it will amount to having allowed a movement that was against India's sovereignty and integrity. So overall, the bilateral ties we see are going to go down not very well from here onwards, and what kind of reaction India is going to make on the allegation of Justin Trudeau on Indian agencies' role in the killing of Hardeep Singh Nichar and another dreaded Khalistan leader in Canada, that remains to be seen.
Statements by ministers. The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Over the past number of weeks, Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijar. Our top priorities have therefore been: 1, that our law enforcement and security agencies ensure the continued safety of all Canadians, and 2, that all steps be taken to hold perpetrators of this murder to account. Canada has declared its deep concerns to the top intelligence and security officials of the Indian government. Last week at the G20, I brought them personally and directly to Prime Minister Modi in no uncertain terms. Any involvement of a foreign government in the killing of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil is an unacceptable violation of our sovereignty.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Moments ago, the Prime Minister.
As you would expect, we've been working closely and coordinating with our allies on this very serious matter. In the strongest possible terms, I continue to urge the Government of India to cooperate with Canada to get to the bottom of this matter. I know many Canadians, particularly members of the Indo-Canadian community, are feeling angry or perhaps frightened right now. Let us not allow this to change us. Let us remain calm and steadfast in our commitment to our democratic principles and our adherence to the rule of law. This is who we are and what we do as Canadians.
Okay, and now déclaration de ministre, l'honorable ministre du patrimoine canadien.
The Honourable Minister of Canadian Heritage.
In what could become a major diplomatic fallout between India and Canada, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has alleged that they are investigating credible evidences, links that there could be Indian agency's role in killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Hardeep Singh Nijjar, remember, was killed in the month of June in Surrey Gurudwara, where he was a senior official also. He was killed in a parking lot, and it was believed to be an assassination or an infight among the group members. He was a dreaded terrorist, an activist in the name of Khalistani movement. He was wanted in India for several crimes that he had committed, and his killing was kind of seen in Canada as a in the investigation, as the investigation proceeded further, that there has so far not been any established link between his killing and Indian agencies. But now Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, has said that for weeks they have been investigating a link that could say that the role of Indian agencies were very much behind the killing of Hardeep Singh Nijjar. He said that he had brought this issue up while having a conversation with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. We had seen Justin Trudeau having a conversation with Prime Minister Modi on the sidelines of G20 summit level talks. Apparently, Justin Trudeau has brought this up, saying that foreign involvement in Canada's domestic affair is something that is being witnessed, and Indian Prime Minister has duly rejected any such allegations right there, saying that Khalistani movement, which is picking up a lot of steam in Canada these days, that needs to be tackled, and that is something that India
महिला आरक्षण के संबंध में बहुत चर्चाएं हुई हैं, बहुत वाद विवाद हुए हैं। महिला आरक्षण को लेकर संसद में पहले भी कुछ प्रयास हुए हैं। 1996 में इससे जुड़ा बिल पहली बार पेश हुआ था। अटल जी के कार्यकाल में कई बार महिला आरक्षण का बिल पेश किया गया, कई बार। कल ही कैबिनेट में महिला आरक्षण वाला जो विधेयक है उसको मंजूरी दी गई है। हर देश की विकास यात्रा में ऐसे माइलस्टोन आते हैं जब वो गर्व से कहता है कि आज के दिन हम सब ने नया इतिहास रचा है। तो बहुत आवश्यक है कि नीति निर्धारण में, पॉलिसी मेकिंग में हमारी माताएं, बहनें, हमारी नारी शक्ति अधिकतम योगदान दें, ज्यादा से ज्यादा योगदान दें।
अनलेस कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल अमेंडमेंट 1/3 बैकवर्ड को देने का अगर नहीं होता तो नेचुरली वहाँ के महिलाओं को नहीं मिलता। और अगर आप नहीं करेंगे तो सिर्फ उन बैकवर्ड क्लासेस को अन्याय होगा। क्यों अन्याय होगा कि चुन चुन के लोग ऐसा करते हैं हमेशा लेडीज के लिए, यानी बैकवर्ड क्लास के लेडीज में, शेड्यूल कास्ट लेडीज में उतने पढ़े लिखे नहीं हैं और उनकी लिटरेसी लिटरेसी ये भी साक्षरता भी कम है। वो कम रहने के वजह से और सभी पॉलिटिकल पार्टियों का, मैं एक पार्टी बोल के नहीं बोलता, सभी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी की एक आदत है कि महिला बोले तो कमजोर महिला को दे देते हैं, जो सक्षम है, जो लड़ सकती है। अरे सुनो तुमको, अरे आप टिकट 1/3 टिकट देते वक्त बैठिए।
We respect the leader of the opposition, but to make a sweeping statement that all parties choose women who are not effective is absolutely unacceptable. I speak on behalf of all our women. We have all been empowered by our party, by our Prime Minister. Draupadi Murmu ji.
Welcome everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. The proceedings in new parliament have begun. The first order of business in the new building was Nari Shakti Vandan Adhiniyam, the bill which will reserve 1/3 of seats for women in parliament and all legislative assemblies. With this, a credit war has also erupted between the Congress and the BJP.